Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. And my name is Chani. We've got Jen Franklin and David joining from Italy. David, how do I pronounce your surname?
My surname is Del Vecchio.
Del Vecchio. Yes, I wanted to make sure that I say it right. And then I got Diana as well. We have these calls every third Tuesday of the month. And that's just for the community. And we have two CISOs often discussing. So just a little bit about CISO platforms. We are an open give back community to create emotionally intelligent cybersecurity leaders. So I initially started this back in 2018 because of my own frustrations being in the industry, and then Diana, Clive, Nisa, they've been founding members as well. So we all went to Sri Lanka when we first did the boot camp. That was fun. And we had a really good time, 5 days teaching at the boot camp, and then ended up with a nice karaoke session at the Hilton at 3 o'clock in the morning. Diana singing Barbie Girl. So it's like,
don't embarrass me publicly. Sang Barbie Girl, and we're very famous for it.
Yeah. So that was how we started, and then now we evolved into quarterly meetups, monthly mentoring calls, and then we've got a community of about 700 people, and it's growing every day. And then we're planning to run the next virtual boot camp in July. We've had awesome numbers in terms of people signing up and wanting to apply for scholarships. I think we've got over 260 something at the moment. And it's every hour there's someone signing up. So I don't know if we can accommodate everyone now in the first boot camp. So we are kind of having discussions around, are we going to run 2 boot camps or 3 boot camps just to accommodate everyone? So because we don't want to let anyone down or not choose. So that's kind of in discussion. But these calls are more like, get to connect with the community as well as create awareness, and also, share knowledge pretty much and experience. So I'm so glad to have you both, and thank you so much for saying yes at such short notice.
Thank you.
And yeah, so that's a bit about me and CISO. And Diana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, my name is Diana Moldovan. I'm the UK Cyber Operations Lead for Aviva, where I'm running the incident response and threat hunting team. And I'm obviously a board member of CISO Exec platform. So let's jump into the next part. Today's team is becoming a CISO, and obviously we have amazing people with us, Jane and Davide. I think it's Davide, not David, so I'm going to use my Italian knowledge there, Davide.
You're actually, I think, the first person that pronounced my name in the correct way, even if I don't.
I have a good friend whose name is Davide, that's why. One disclaimer from our part, the views on this call are our personal views and do not represent the employers of anyone participating. So we speak freely about our opinion. Today, as I mentioned, we have Jane Franklin, and we are so delighted for having you, Jane. We know you are absolutely crazy busy all the time. What amazing things you are doing. So Jane is the owner and CEO of Cybersecurity Capital Limited, a global digital ambassador, founding member of Women for Cyber, digital CISO, entrepreneur, advisor, author, you name it, probably.
Yeah, like
music. Everything you can imagine, Jane did. So that's amazing. And then we have Davide, who is the Chief Information Security Officer, El Tratre. One reminder for everyone, please start to put your questions in the chat. So we will use these for our 2 guests later. And I will pass it over to Chani to invite actually our speakers to present themselves for 5 minutes each, because then we have plenty of questions from our side and then the people who are with us today.
Yeah, so I'm going to quickly just say thank you for the sponsors. I mean, I know my company, Meta Defense Labs, have been supporting the CISO platform so far. And Clive's been very helpful on that side, and my team, Nisa. So just wanted to give them a quick thank you. Jane, I'll start with you. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about what you're working on currently and any exciting projects that you're on?
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Jane Frankland, and I own a consulting and training company called Cybersecurity Capital. And we believe that a failure to attract and retain women in cybersecurity is making us less safe. So a lot of the work that I do is with leaders on that, so helping them to build good businesses, you know, working on strategy, and then also working with women in cybersecurity and other male-dominated industries to help them really become better leaders. And for me, it's always about, you know, being a leader starts with leading yourself. So it's looking at how you can advance in your career, how you can become more visible, how you can become more vocal, how you can avoid being burnt out, which is a real problem in our industry, particularly at the leadership level. So you're becoming much more visible, a good visible role model, confident and impactful. So that's typically kind of what I do. So I've been in the industry for 22 years. I've built and sold my own penetration testing firm or hacking firm. I've worked with accreditation companies and forums, you know, most of the ones like you will have heard of, OWASP, Cyber Essentials, and so on. And I'm an awards judge for about, I think it's 9 awards globally. So ranging from some in security in the UK and the US, some in tech, some massive awards in Europe, some business book awards as well. So it's quite a variety there. And yeah, so that's kind of really, I'm sure I've missed loads of things out. I'm an influencer as well. So I do work as a speaker, as a paid speaker, as a paid influencer. And then also I've got my company where I've got my programs for women and for leaders.
Thank you, Jane. Davide, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I feel a bit embarrassed to talk after Jane, to be honest.
Everyone would. Don't worry, Davide, you're not alone. No. I think everyone would feel embarrassed with such a
Please no.
portfolio.
Yeah. It's an impressive, very impressive, presentation and curriculum, I would say.
You're very kind. Thank you.
No, that's just the truth. And I'm Davide Del Vecchio. I work as a CISO, as a senior director in cybersecurity for a company that is called Delta 3. I started as a very, very technical guy. So some years ago, I would say 15 years ago, I was a penetration tester, ethical hacker. Then slowly, I grew up in the role. Doing more and more managerial things, and I would say that my strongest skill is building security strategies for global companies. The last 2 experiences that I have are the actual now for Delta 3, that is a global company, an Italian but global company that works as technical partner, the leader actually technical partner for sport events in the world. So we stream, for example, the Super Bowl, the Champions League, the Indian cricket final, which is the most viewed events in the world, the Olympics, etc., etc. There's always us behind all these events. But I love to think that every strategy needs to be customized around people that makes a company, and I hope I customize with the security strategy with two characteristics that are empathy and kindness, which I really believe into, and I think it's something extremely important to embed empathy and kindness in security.
For sure. Thank you very much, Davide.
Thank you.
Cool. So before we start jumping to the questions, you mentioned both of you, you know, Jane, you mentioned you used to work as a pen tester. So obviously you have a very technical background, and Davide, yourself as well, you mentioned you have a very technical background. How do you think these helped you within your career as a CISO? Many people consider you don't need to be a technical person to be a CISO. Obviously, it cannot harm, can it? So do you think it's a big advantage to come back from a technical background as a CISO or advising CISOs in your case, Jane? So Jane, you want first?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in pen testing, but I am not a pen tester. So I build pen testing teams. So and in fact, it's really good because obviously David has come from that background. I haven't. So for me, if you do come from a technical background, brilliant, but you don't have to. So security is so wide, so diverse, there is something for anyone. So I did start off my career in building, in fact, the company that I built, so I came straight into security from not having a tech background. My background was art and design. So I was a nominated young British designer, fell pregnant, single parent, needed to go and earn some money, good brain, ended up in a sales job, met someone, fell in love, started a tech company. That's kind of how I ended up in security. So, but because I started this tech company with a partner and I didn't know anything really about technology, the only thing that interested me was really security or AI. And AI in 1997 was too early. But security was viable. So for me, I kind of trusted my instinct, and I knew I always wanted to be a business owner from being a child. So read, mixed with people, and networked and really kind of learnt on the job, and then intuitively drilled down, niched down into pen testing. And that's really how I became really involved in penetration testing, and why I will still say that it's the area that I know the best out of all the areas in security, because I owned that company for 16 years and worked in the pen testing or ethical hacking side of things for a long time.
Thank you very much, and it's really interesting, and I'm glad to hear that. Obviously, we have many people on the call who probably aspire to be one day a CISO, and they might think, I'm not technical enough. Well, there you go, guys. You don't have to be technical to be a CISO. It's a wide area, and everyone who puts the effort and wants to get there can do that. Davide, what's your experience and how did you start your journey as a CISO?
So as I told before, I started as a penetration tester. Well, actually, to be precise, I started dealing with security when I was 6 years old, and my dad bought me a Commodore Amiga 500. I don't know if you remember it. Maybe I'm old enough to remember it. I was 6 when my dad bought it to me, and I basically wanted to win. Okay, I wanted to win in games and end up every game. But so I wanted to modify games to have infinite lives, basically. So that's where I started. Then when I was a teenager, I got access to the internet, and I was able to speak and communicate to people that was similar to me, and so that was very curious about security, and I got access to a lot of information, because before you had to rely on TXT, on floppy disk, and things like that. It was a huge difference when I got access.
I remember those days.
Yeah,
I mean,
when I got access to the internet, it was like finally accessing an incredibly huge library of knowledge. And then I started to be a penetration tester when I was 19 or 20, more or less. And then I worked in incident handling, and then as a SOC manager. and then as a group head of information security, and as a CISO. So I grew up totally in let's say, in the role. But what I would like to say is that I totally agree. I mean, the fact that working in security, not as a CISO necessarily, okay, but working in security, we very often think security, it's an IT job. I don't think it's an IT job. I mean, there is a strong part of technical things, but for sure there are a lot of soft skill that you need to train. And what is very important is that if you come bridging the gaps that you have in your skills. So if you come from a very technical background, you have to understand that you have to grow on the soft skills. And if you come from a soft skill background, you have to understand that you need to bridge the technical skills. And it very often we make this mistake. Even people who is in security and knows everything, let's say, from the technical side, who has a very strong technical knowledge, think that it's enough. And it's not enough. Well, it's never enough, to be honest. But it's not enough of having a technical background, and it's not enough to have a soft skill background. So you really need to be curious and try to always challenge yourself.
Yeah, I think that I so agree with you on that. Some of the challenges I had also, I remember I also come from a very technical background, and then for me, when I started the company, and it was a huge learning curve to get all these soft skills, because you talk tech and then the business people don't understand the tech that you with the jargon that you talk. So it was like, how do we now simplify these things and then present it so that the board or the business can understand? And the biggest challenge was gaining those soft skills, and that's why I CISO is here also, because we believe in emotionally intelligent cybersecurity leaders. You need a lot of leadership skills, communication skills, and all these soft skills more than your technical skills, because it's always good to have the technology skills. What happens with what I've seen in the industry is that whenever things change, your technical skills can be outdated. But if you have soft skills, they never go outdated. You only get better and better in time. And I think the most important element is in a CISO is, how do you be a better leader, for me.
I completely agree with that. And I think so many of the problems that we have, some of the reasons why we are being owned and attacked and penetrated is because of poor leadership. It actually falls down to that communication. So whether that's getting budget or buy-in with stakeholders, hiring people, the teams and things like that, they're all soft skills. It's the leadership which needs to be looked at, in my opinion, in order for us to do a better job. We can never get rid of attacks and breaches and compliance failures and things like that, but we can improve our game considerably if we do the work.
Yeah, and toxic cultures. I go on about this all the time on social media. So we got a question from Glenn Hunter. How do you compete with recruiters who convince companies that they require people with certain certifications? Many skills required do not require certification. I got one answer: just run away and then be a better leader and approach companies directly, or join a community like this, so where you can interact with the business leaders directly than recruiters playing you up.
I don't think it's always recruiters. Sometimes the companies themselves come with these requirements, and I think probably everyone on this call saw, I think it was last week, a job description where I'm not going to mention the company. They were looking for a head of, but the description looked like he has to. He needs to.
Oh, yes.
And then on top of that, the person needed to have 12 years of experience or something in information security. Since when is the number of years, the proof that you can have 5 years of experience where you worked on so many domains and you accumulated so much information and knowledge or you can have 20 and maybe you only worked in one area. So it doesn't mean you're the best person there. And there are many job descriptions that require, those are not put by recruiters necessarily. So I think this is one of the things that you Chan used to say, many companies look for a unicorn, the perfect unicorn, which
Yeah. And something I also do is I don't go apply every job that's out there. I work with trusted recruiters if I know them. And then when I see something like that, I give them feedback straight away. They like it or not, you're getting it. And that's kind of the approach I have. And I try and apply for jobs that goes directly to the company, or I reach out to someone who works in the company and find out more before I apply. Because then you're also taking ownership around what you're trying to do rather than just waiting for somebody to find you a job.
Yeah. Cool.
I completely
Let's
agree
continue
with that.
with
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Jane.
No, I completely agree with that. It's about building a network. I think the older I got, the more I actually think. So I do a huge amount of work on personal branding and influence. So raising your visibility, becoming a role model and things like that. But the network is so, so important. You know, you can't wait. And there's so much of this waiting for permission rather than actually becoming empowered and actually taking the initiative to do that. And, you know, women typically tend not to do as good a job as men with regards to this. So it really, the network, the putting yourself in front of, the developing the relationships, the asking for help is so massively important. And even though a lot of companies will have their own internal processes and things like that, if you can still go round, you still have so much more of a foothold in that organization by doing that. You've got more internal, you've got more intelligence, more knowledge of what exactly they're looking for, and can potentially be coached and guided by those people within the company who want you to join, but you might just have to go through HR and the actual proper channels.
How do you, sorry, thanks, Jane. So how do you approach recruitment, David?
How do I approach recruiting?
Yeah.
Well, I try to focus on goals. So I start from the goals. So I don't take. I always try not to focus on the person. I try not to visualize, you know, the person that I would like to have, or the kind of person that I have in my mind. But I try to focus on our strategy and what we would like to achieve in our strategy. And then going back, I think about the skills that I think are needed to achieve these goals. And then I go to the job description and I write the job description based on that. So I think I base our job description on the skills based on the goals that we would like to achieve.
Cool.
So you don't use values at all. I'm kind of interested because, you know, bringing in values is so important. It's like, to me, I would start always with values. Definitely skills, because you need to know where the gaps are.
Yeah. I think values, when, for example, you're talking about kindness, empathy, etc. That's also what I mean between skills.
Okay, right, fine. So yeah, right. So ethics and things like that. So,
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Let's go to the next questions, because we have plenty. And this is a question for both of you, Jane and Davide. What are the biggest challenges you faced in your career so far? Maybe say maximum 3, because probably you had to get in the position where you are today.
Yeah, for me, I mean, initially it was because I started my career as a business owner in my 20s. So it was, and I looked really young. So I'm quite fortunate because I look quite young still. But when I was in my 20s, I looked really young, and I was a woman, and I didn't know about tech. So for me, it was really the age aspect. You know, will I be taken seriously when I go into a meeting? You know, when I'm closing a deal, when I'm building a team, when I'm working with a supplier. So the age thing was the biggest, I think, challenge. I've got 3 kids, and I had all of my kids throughout, you know, all of the work that I've done. But actually, my children haven't really been a challenge for me. It was the age aspect, and then really, I think, turning around a business during the dot-com boom bubble. So I learned the lesson of cash is king. So great, you know, order book and things like that. But if you don't have the money, because right at that point, companies were going under. So companies that we were working, my business partner and I were working with, were going under. We were owed a lot of money. We weren't being paid on time. And there was a whole load of things that kind of happened. And that caused my pen testing company at one point in time real trouble. So that was a huge challenge of actually saving that business, rescuing it, which is what I did, and turning it around and actually making it much more healthy, much more profitable, and still a very well-known company in its time, and still remembered as being you know, one of the leaders in pen testing. So those, I think, for me, were the biggest challenges that I've created, that have happened, that I've had to deal with in my career.
Thank you. What about you, Davide?
I can think about 2 main challenges that I had. Well, the first is the fact that I think at the beginning of my career, I had a bad mentor. Okay, and this person had the kind of mindset that he was always quoting the Art of War. Have you heard about the
Yeah.
book The Art of War
Yeah.
of Sun Tzu?
Yeah.
I think in the 70s, around in the 70s or 80s, they were making a lot of people in companies reading this book. It's a very aggressive book, and it's always about fighting, how to win war, how to win discussions and things like that. Okay, and he was really always quoting it. But so at the beginning, I started, you know, with this mentor and this kind of mindset of going to work, to the office, and having to fight a war. But I mean, probably a year later or 2 years later, especially when then I left this company and this mentor, I understood. I mean, my life in the office is not the art of war. I think it's the art of peace. I mean, in the office, in security especially, you have to create bridges with other teams. You have to create alliances, okay? Because the war and the kind of enemies that you have are external from the companies. You have already enough enemies in cyber criminals. You cannot fight with your colleagues. Okay,
Yeah.
so I transformed it in the art of peace instead of the art of war. And I tried to revert everything that he told me, you know? So trying to learn from exactly from the contrary, from the negative. So this
A very good point. That's a very good point, Davide. Thank you very much, because most of us are looking to find mentors, and sometimes it takes time to find the perfect mentor for you that has the same values that Jane mentioned, which are very important, or a similar mentality to us, or something we can actually look forward to and identify ourselves with. So that's very.
I think it's kind of, I love what David has just said, but I do think also that you attract your mentors, and it's almost like the saying, you know, when the student is ready, the master presents himself or herself. And I really do think that happens, but you've got to be ready for it. You've got to be putting yourself out there and working on yourself, you know, rather than kind of, I think, just expecting, you know, that a mentor or knocking on someone's door, will you be my mentor? I know that happens, and I don't fault anyone for doing it, but I much prefer it when it's just kind of a natural connection that happens, and that's what has happened to me. You know, someone taking you under their wing, and it's just like, it's okay, let me guide you.
Yeah, I think
you mentioned something similar. Sorry, go ahead, David.
Yeah, no, I think the question is that this guy was my first real boss. Okay, my first real manager. So it was my first work, and I took him, you know, as a he was my leader for me. Okay, he was my mentor, my natural, let's say, mentor at that time. I was 20. It was my first job, etc., etc. So I later understood that I was a different person. Okay, from him, I had different views, etc., etc. And I think the other, let's say, challenge, the other experience that uh, was uh, was really strong for me was a colleague that I had in my previous work in Net-a-Porter, and she was called Charmaine. She now works somewhere else, but she was the head of risk, of cyber risk, and she was extremely good into distill complex risks, complex technical risk into very easy word, and she was it made my mind really had a shift, and she was a great inspiration because I understood that the fact that these people who was not technical, uh, they were not able to understand technical language, and I always felt like and thought like, they're so ignorant. But then when I saw her behaviors, I had a shift in my mind. It was enlightening, and I said to myself, no, actually, I am the one who is ignorant because I cannot speak their language. So it was a great inspiration, and even if you know, she was she was not my boss as the previous person, the other mentor, but anyway, she was a natural leader. She was a leader for me in that field, and she really was a great inspiration.
I
Thank
think
you for sharing
sometimes,
that.
yeah, sometimes that having more than one mentor is also good. I mean, I'm lucky enough to get married to my mentor. But I do have other mentors in terms of different topics. I always reach out to people I trust. My trusted network are pretty much my mentors, and then, you know, and you get the right advice. And also something I was looked at is when you speak to more than one person about a challenge and get different opinions, then you're in a better place to make that informed decision rather than relying on just one person to guide you to do the right thing. And that also really helped me in the past, and is still now as well.
But I think with that, Chani, the only thing I would say with that is I do agree, but you've got to make sure that the person who you go to has done what you want to do, I think, before. And I think so often it's really easy. Everyone like has an opinion and they'll pile in, or you can reach out. And it's just, yeah, I always kind of check myself if ever that happens, you know, because it does. You know, I had one actually yesterday, and it's just like, who are you to give me advice? Are you an expert? Have you done, you know, all of this? Are you coming from a position of knowledge and experience, or is that just your view? You know, so it's almost like downgraded. If it's your view, yeah, I'll still listen to it, but it's not going to be weighted as heavily. You're not going to be able to influence me as much as someone who has got knowledge and experience, you know, and can guide me more proficiently, I think, because of that.
Absolutely agree, Jane. We have, I think, a raised hand from Robin Bilenga, if I'm pronouncing correctly. So, Nisa, could you please unmute Robin and see if he has a question or a comment to make? Sorry, Robin,
So
I know you did that a long time ago.
Because I think I made a mistake that it was not enabled for private chatting, so everyone to chat. Now it's enabled, so anyone can ask questions here. So Robin's question was question for David. I'm a mature student graduating with an MSc Information Security in London, have years of entrepreneurial business experience, but I'm challenged with finding employment as most HR departments do not understand the transition from tier 4 to tier 2, and they that we are on the shortage list as cyber professionals? How do we get around this whilst applying for jobs and not get expunged by the system before ever getting through to HR? This is, I think, a long discussion. I'll let you answer, David. David, sorry.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure I correctly understood the whole question, but I think you have to make well, from one point of view, you need to make sure that your CV is well written, let's say, enough to expose what you would like to do and how you would like to do it and your skills. On the other side, I would say that if a company doesn't understand your potential, it's probably not the right company.
Yeah, true. And also, don't wait for things to put on CV. Start their social media, start adding value to the community, build your eminence. There's a lot of things that you can do in terms of showing your knowledge around these different topics. So, you know, you automatically, in time, you become an expert in certain area if you're passionate enough to create a lot of content out there to share your knowledge. And that also helps recruitment process because they know then who you are and what you do. So, and also when you apply for companies, if they don't appreciate what the values you bring in, the skill set that you bring in, that is a big sign. Like David said, it's probably not the right company for you and not the right environment for you to work in, I think. And that's kind of what I believe.
Yeah, but that also, as Chani was saying, there are a lot of incredible, and I think this is the incredible opportunity that we have in our industry, that is the security industry, is still totally not industrialized. So there are not so many standards, there are not so many tools, etc., etc. There is an occasion for everybody to build a new tool, to help in some organization. So join, the OWASP meetings, join every kind of meetings that you can go, you can take certification, you can create some project on GitHub, and this will, every one of these suggestions will contribute to your curriculum, and they will be for sure appreciated. If they are not appreciated, they probably don't understand what is security.
Jane, what do you think? 'Cause I feel like you want to add something to this.
I mean, everything that Chani and David has said is the case. It's just put yourself in front of them, network, get on social, show your experience, blog. That's one of the best ways. Or if you're not good at blogging, then speak it or video. But it's your job to actually put yourself in front of the right person or someone who can help you get in front of the right person. So it's networking, it's making yourself visible, it's showing, rather than the old school kind of methods, which was hello recruitment company, here's my CV. Now it's just like, I spoke to one and she wasn't in your position to the question that was asked. But she'd applied to, she was a leader, she was a CISO. So she'd applied to 40 jobs, in 1 week, and it's just like, that's a waste of time. That's, the skills gap, I'm not even going to get onto that right now, but it's just like, it is tough no matter what level that you are at, getting a job. I think the easiest positions to find work are when you've got 2 to 3 years experience and you are all certified up with a CISP and a CISM or whatever it is, or you're a pen tester, it's a good pen tester, but it's outside of that kind of narrow window, it's hard. You've got to do the work, and if you do apply those things, network and present and make yourself visible, which is getting harder because right now we're in lockdown. And, you know, even on LinkedIn, there's, you know, I was reading the other day that I think there's been a surge, 55.5%, you know, more people are on LinkedIn just kind of putting rubbish on there. It's like horrible, you know, so you've got to work harder. You have to work harder.
Yeah.
I'd like just to add something, because it's something I really care, let's say, is that the real first job that I did was not in security. It was a company that was working in IT in general, and I was working into the monitoring, which for me was very boring. Was a very boring activity for my aspiration, let's say. And I remember I expressed, you know, very, very strongly to the company the wish to work in security. So I made, they called me one day in the company. They told me, okay, we'll do, you know, let's make a test with the kids. So we make you some questions around security, etc., etc. So I did this quiz. And at the end, they called me in a room and they said, you know, Davide, we have to tell you something. Yeah, tell me. You will never work in security. So I think it's still this phrase, this statement to me still motivates me to do better nowadays. So I would say, don't let anyone tell you what you can or you cannot do. Maybe I was not prepared at that time, but that judgment so bad directly in my teeth, like, you will never work in security.
Or maybe that person knew you really well, you know, so you know that he or she kind of was just like, yeah, I know this is going to motivate you. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, for some people it's just like, don't tell me what I can or can't do, because I'll show you.
That's what happened to me, but I changed company anyway, and I went working for security after that. So.
Yeah, we got a question here. Am I right in saying that CISO is obviously always a certified CISO, and that CISO program empowers certified CISOs to be better CISOs from a soft skills, social engineering, and managerial point of view? A second question would be, how does the CIS or CCSP certification from ISC Squared related to the CISO certification? I don't think there's a certification for CISOs. I know there are a lot of training companies that produce good content like ISC Squared, EC Council, ISACA. There's quite a lot of training companies. I think good CISO is more than just a certification, in my opinion. Also, what CISO does is we empower the community, we support the community. It's not just for CISOs, it's for anyone who wants to get into cybersecurity. Something I didn't tell at the beginning was that CISO stands for bridging the skill gap, the diversity gap, and the leadership gap in people. And we try and empower people to be better at what they do, and also to be emotionally intelligent cybersecurity leaders. But in my opinion, I don't think we can't limit a CISO role to a certification. It doesn't work like that. It comes with a lot of skills, experience, as well as the personality in a lot of ways.
What do you think, Jane? Because obviously you had multiple roles as virtual CISOs. Maybe what kind of training helped you within your career, or if you can see there's something?
Yeah, I mean, there are certifications for CISOs, but they're not really kind of valued at all. You know, so that there are some that are coming out, but I think from a CISO perspective, I mean, you know, I can think of one company that I'm partnering with right now. They've got training for new CISOs. So ones that, you know, may have been consulting, they may have been a pen tester, but they're going into their first kind of like CISO role. So they will take them through exactly, you know, what their first 90 days will look like, say, and walk them through it and give them all the tools and help. And they've got a community that will support them, you know, so that they can ask questions and so forth. And then they also have another program where you've got an emerging CISO, so someone who's recognized, actually, I want to become one, but I'm not one yet. So for me, there are some good programs out out already like that. There's no kind of valuable certification, although they might provide you with a little, you know, plaque or whatever to say you're certified in their program. But I think some of the really worthwhile courses that you can invest in are, first of all, a good leadership course as a CISO, and then also a really good communications course, particularly when it comes to communicating to the board. You know, so that, I think, it's just like, how do you present to the board? What is the language of the board? Because all too often I meet CISOs, come across CISOs, read about CISOs, and it's just like this whole, like, don't know, it infuriates me a little bit, because it's a case of you're not speaking the language of the board. They can't understand you. You are talking far too technical. They don't care about that. You need to actually understand what it looks like through their lens, and really up your game, and go get yourself a training course. Go and invest in yourself. You know, it's that personal development. So it's coming back to the soft skills, you know, that David and Johnny were talking about earlier, and that emotional intelligence, really, really important, you know, for the board, but also for the other stakeholders that you are going to have to engage with as a CISO. So you need to be getting the project buy-in, you need to be able to move projects forward, you need to be able to get budgets, you need to be able to cope with the political landscape, because not everyone is going to be on your side in your organization, depending on how big it is. So there's a lot of emotional intelligence that really is required for you to do your job as a CISO. So investing in any one of those things, and it's really valuable.
Davide, would you add anything?
Yeah, I'd like just to add the fact that I think certification and studying for certification for sure has a value, because as I told before, you have always to be curious and try to grow. Okay. At the same time, having a certification, just certify that you studied certain things, but doesn't certify that you learned those things. And that's a big difference between the two things. So when you have a job posting, or you're hiring someone, you cannot rely on certification, but you need always to verify that he has the correct skills, that he learned the things that you would like he or she to express, you know, in everyday work. So I don't see certification as a very big value, to be honest.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Davide, because I see all the time questions like this on LinkedIn from recruiters asking companies, what do you think about certifications? I personally, although I lead technical teams, I stripped out all the requirements for certifications, because it happened to me to interview people who were certified in incident response with a very good certification. And when I've asked them the basic things they should know, they didn't, probably because they passed that a long time ago, and they do hands-on exercises or didn't have hands-on experience. So I completely agree with you. It's like with exams in school, you know, we passed them 10 years ago, years ago. We still remember all these things, even if we pass with A+, absolutely. We all the time need to continue working on that and refreshing, especially in the cyberspace, which is a continuous, absolute continuous change. Thank you for that.
Still, I would suggest, especially at the beginning of the career, to do some certification.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they are absolutely useful also to enter, you know, the security career. Especially,
you need to build a foundation, right?
Yeah,
build a foundation and then start building further. Absolutely. I'm not saying we are not saying, guys, for everyone on the call, we are against certifications. Absolutely not. Just the certification doesn't mean you are the best person for a job. It's much more, and that's why we have interviews. So that's the idea.
Something I do normally is I go and study a lot of these courses. Because I'm curious, I want to find out, what it teaches, what am I going to learn new, and I do also do a lot of self-study. So I've kind of done a lot of training from CISP to all these forensics, whatever the training that's out there. But that doesn't necessarily mean I go on hunting, oh, I need to get this certification, that certification. But if a job requires me to be certified in certain technology, then yes, I would go for that if I really want that job. I remember when I was at IBM, one of the requirements was that the VMware architects has to, or VMware tech consultants has to be VMware certified. Then, that's something that you have to get. There's no right or wrong. You have to study it, do work on that project, and also be certified. But some of the security certifications, they're there just to guide you and help you and gain that experience. So I like studying these things, but doesn't really go after, yes, I want to get this certification. I'm done with that part right now. But I get the knowledge and try and apply that knowledge into a lot of the work that I do, and that really helps. So I think if I am to hire people, I mean, if you ask some of my team, I haven't even looked at their CVs. I hire the person, and then that's how we work, and then help them to be the people they want to be. That's kind of where my approach is. But I've only been a virtual CISO for a very short time, so there might be a lot of people out there who has different opinions.
I'm conscious of the time. I'm not sure if David and Jane can stay for a few more minutes. Yeah. Okay, so then let's go quickly to the next one. Before, obviously, we will have the question for, as a security leader, what will be the message to the community? But before that, I'm very curious to understand and to know, what do you think are the top 3 or top 2 mistakes that CISOs in general do, or companies do, when it comes to CISOs roles? We've read, probably all of us, about how CISOs are exhausted. CISOs start to have mental health problems because they are absolutely worked to exhaustion. So what is your view? What is your view here?
So mine is that. I mean, that was actually one of them. It's just like, first of all, you've got to understand your environment. You need to look at the assets. You need to understand risk and make sure that you are actually reducing the risk of that environment. You can't get rid of it. So that's number one. And it's like really, really broad, but it's doing the basics really well. And that so often is where a lot of the problems are. It's just like, you're not covering the basics. You just work through it. What are the assets? What are your risks? What's the likelihood? And so on. Do the basics really well. And it sounds really simple, but it's always hard, no matter what industry or field you're in. Do the basics really well. The second thing is recruiting. Make sure you get the best talent that you can on board. So your team are going to do the job. Really look after your team, support your team, have their back. Be a good leader. As a leader, that involves doing the mentoring aspect, but really look after your team and stretch them and develop them and support them and have their back, but also enable them to be self-directing too. So you're not telling them, you're not instructing them, you're empowering them. So which kind of comes back a lot to the kind of leadership skills. And then the third one is look after yourself. So it's just like, again, when you're empowered, when you can develop yourself, and when you have clear boundaries as a good leader, then you will push back and you will say, no, I'm not going to do that, or you won't wait for permission. So you have to be, this mental health side of things is absolutely crippling our industry. I read something the other day, 9 out of 10 CISOs at the moment are moderately to, have moderate to high levels of stress, and they are, for a good year, if not longer, we've known about this. We know the level of stress and the consequences of this. And when our job is about thinking clearly and making good decisions based around risk, if you're mentally unwell, if you are not getting enough sleep, if you are reaching for alcohol or drugs, which is what 2 out of 5 CISOs are doing to compensate for this, again, according to the data, then that's a real problem. How can we be the best at our job that we can be? We have to look after ourselves. We have to push back. We have to say no. And if those environments won't if those environments won't allow us to operate like that, well, look for signals. Go and find companies where they are, because a lot of CISOs at large organizations where they're not being looked after are going into these smaller startups where they can actually operate more healthily and get on and do their job with less politics and things like that, and become rewarded, very well. So it is about that environment, and if you can't find it there, go create your own. Go be an entrepreneur, like Chani, and like me. So you've got a lot of choice there as to what to do, but you have to look after yourself, because you're of no use to anyone if you don't.
Thank you very much, Jane.
Can't agree enough on that one. So true.
Davide, what do you think? What's your view?
So I would say that, one first mistake that companies often do, I think it's they don't hire the correct candidate that fits their needs. I mean, there is not, I don't think there is the perfect CISO or an ideal CISO. I think there is a different kind of CISO or security person that is different for every company, and that is different for even the size of the company. Like you will do for a CEO of a company that is 10 person will not be the right CEO for a company that is 1,000 person or 10,000 person. And I think for the CISO is exactly the same. Probably if you are a 10-person company, the CISO in a 10-person company is someone who can code and look into bugs, vulnerabilities, can manage a firewall or things like that. But at the same time, a CISO in a very big company probably is a person that that is very political and has a lot of other skills. So I think first mistake is hiring a candidate that does not fit the company needs. Second one is thinking that, and I see it very often, it's companies thinking that hiring just one person, so just the CISO, and having no dedicated security budget could be effective to change the company security culture. I think in these cases, the result is that most of the time, the CISO will finish to be just a scapegoat.
Yeah,
and that's it.
I agree.
Yeah, completely.
And
Yeah.
the third common mistake, and I would say this is a CISO mistake, it's even to CISOs that are experienced, they might be tricked to think that the internal security team is enough skilled to not need any external help. So it's connected also to what you were talking before. I think an external point of view could always be useful to see things from a different angle. But I think at the same time that a lot of CISOs think that if they will go to the CEO or to the CFO and say, oh, I think we need to hire some contractor or some consultancy company, etc., they will look weak or unskilled. But we don't have to feel like that. I mean, even in finance, a lot of time auditors are external auditors, and there's a reason for that. So I think we need to ask for help when we need.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
On that point, sorry, go on, Diana.
No. I said absolutely. I completely agree.
I was just saying that from my experience, I mean, I do virtual CISO for small to medium enterprises. I always think that a CISO should think like an entrepreneur. So if you want to be a CISO in future, we first take accountability and responsibility for your actions, and also think like entrepreneur. Why? Because I always look at the people side of entrepreneurs are there to solve problems, And the CISO should also look at how do you solve a problem within the business? How do you work with things that you've already got rather than going and begging for money all the time? And also working with the business, the people, make friends in the business. You need to have people skills to understand what their challenges are, talking to a lot of people, and then try and help people genuinely. And then automatically your budget will get approved, and then you can create a cultural transformation within the business if you are being a bit better leader and also trying to help others. And that's why I think CISOs should think like entrepreneurs. And also the technical skills. If you don't have certain technical skills, you don't be discouraged or struggle, because we don't know everything. We are not perfect, and if you don't know something, ask the experts, get the experts. Like, for example, if I'm working with a client on the virtual CISO capacity, and if there is a very complex technical issue that I don't have the capacity to understand or to solve, then I reach out to my expert network and say, hey guys, I need help, can you help me with this, and solve that problem and get them to help me. That is something that I practice and really helps. So if I've seen some of the questions here, that if you ever need a mentor or seek out to the community, or you need some help, don't just keep quiet. Reach out to us and ask for help, because we are here to support each other. Otherwise, this can't happen. And it can be a mentor for a CISO, it can be a mentor for anybody, and we are here to help and support each other. So connect with us on LinkedIn, and also ask questions, a lot of questions. So clarify things before you make any judgments or stupid decisions.
Cool. And the last question, because we have over 40 people and most of them are at the beginning of their journey in the cyberspace or the information security, and some of them might want to pursue maybe a career, but they are not sure. So from your experience, David and Jane, and as a security leader, especially, what is your message to the community? What are maybe some tips that you can offer to everyone on the call, obviously including myself, because one can always learn and must always learn. What would you say is very important for everyone?
Jane, I leave.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered so many. I mean, it is just be curious, be interested. You don't have to be passionate at all. That's just like a bonus if you are, but interested, curious, go and learn yourself. So there are so many resources out there, so many that are free. Go YouTube them, go and look at Inspired. I think it's not Inspired Careers. I can't actually think that, because there are so many of them. I mean, there is Inspired Careers, there's Cyber Fast Track, there's loads and loads of resources where you can go and actually get free training. It's completely gone, all the names are completely gone from my head, but just go and YouTube, go and Google, go and start learning yourself, go and mix with people, ask what you need to learn, network. Those are all my kind of like top tips for actually kind of progressing, and getting into this industry.
Thank you. David, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very easy from so I leave, let's say, a message to the people very technical, to the very technical people working in security. I think it's very easy from a security point of view to criticize things and persons, because in security we are really used to break things, okay? But the real question is that building things, it's way more complex than breaking them, okay? So I think we should always try to step into the shoes of our colleagues that are trying to build things, and help them to understand how they could build things that are more resilient. But we have always to keep in mind the efforts that they made and the sleepless night that they spent on building them. So always train empathy and believe in kindness.
I'd like to add to that because I think you brought up something really interesting. I think we have a mixed community. It's half and half. We have engineers, you know, who like to take apart and break things and go on the offense, so attack. And then we have the defenders, so the protectors, and they may be more designers, you know, so they may be more collaborative. But it's completely mixed, and culturally we have a very interesting culture in security because of that. So you can have a lot of aggression, you can have a lot of hostility because you're coming from that attack, you know, kind of perspective. But from the other side, it can be very nurturing. It can be like, let me protect you. And it can also be very toxic because of this environment, because you kind of stray into this whole drama triangle, you know, where you have victim, persecutor, and rescuer. You know, so it's a really interesting, I think, environment. But I do think we do have the engineering side and we have the designer side.
Thank you, Jane. Chani, I think we run out of time very, very badly, so I'll let you add your.
That's fine. I think we enjoyed it. We enjoyed it more than you know, the time, to be honest. Any last messages from you, Diana? I know you got quite a lot. You've been very quiet today.
You know, we have experts here to let them speak. I spoke way too much apart from the questions. I just want to say thank you very much, Davide and Jane. I had the opportunity of hearing Jane live in some of the presentations she had at Ladies of London Hacking Society and others, and she's absolutely amazing. So I'm very, very pleased, and thank you very much again for taking time to come to speak with us and share some of your knowledge and your experience with us. David, it's been great meeting you, really. And there are some really important things that you mentioned there, which they will stuck with me for a while, especially around, you know, working as a big family, working as a team, as we have enough enemy outside of the business. So we have to work together if we want to be successful. So from me, just thank you, everyone. And thank you to everyone who joined, because we had now we have 40, but we had over 45, I think, people at
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been such a great session. Thank you so much, Jane and David. I think you guys had so much value to this session, you know, sharing your knowledge and experience. I think the final message is collaboration, you know, help each other and then support each other. Otherwise, we can't find fight the criminals. So thank you so much for all your time. And just last message, if you want to join CISO community, I think we've shared the link. We are actually trying to move into a Slack community. Still testing around that. We will slowly, but we are also having the bootcamp next month. If you want to talk or if you want to join or apply for a scholarship, just register and we will keep you in touch. We are a volunteering community, so just bear with us and be patient, trying to, you know, get things going. And yeah, so, and also mentoring. So we run these calls every month, third Tuesday of the month, and it's a fixed time. So if you want to join us, please do let us know. We are on LinkedIn, Twitter, as well as on email, and then on Eventbrite page, you can join and sign up with us. And yeah, so that's all from me. Thank you very much. And
I think we had Glenn. Sorry, I think we had Glenn who rose his wanted to say something, but we don't have now the chat open to everyone. Glenn Hunter, you have the last seconds of glory, so let us know. Can someone please unmute Glenn?
Yeah, 1 second. Where is Glenn? I can't find.
Glenn Hunter.
I'm just going to unmute. So just be careful, guys. So if you have any background, yeah, there you go. Cool.
No, I literally just said thanked everyone for your time. It's been really insightful for those of us who are in the industry and those of us who are looking to progress in the industry. So just thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. Cool.
So I've unmuted everyone, and if you have questions, just speak up. You can speak up and say. I'm going to stop the recording so we can talk.